Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
May the 4th be with you, Caitlin.
Yes, exactly. A lot to celebrate today. So I want to talk about the debt ceiling.
Yes.
The president had said that he is not going to negotiate with Republicans. Now he is going to sit down with them. Isn't that a negotiation?
The president has been clear since the beginning of the year, which is that, sending America into default for the first time in our history is actually not a negotiable thing. It never has been negotiable. It never will be negotiable. But that he is happy to talk about budget and appropriations. He is happy to talk about how do we reduce our deficit in the long term. And he made it very clear back in February he was going to send his budget to Congress in March with his priorities. He sent a budget that cuts the deficit by $3 trillion over 10 years. And that when the Republicans had a proposal, we should put them together and then we should talk. Last week, the House Republicans passed a proposal, one that, frankly, we don't agree with any more than they agree with the president's budget. But that's where you begin the discussions. You don't hold America's economy hostage and say, if you won't take my package with no changes, we're going to send the entire economy into recession or depression. You just don't do that.
But the calendar is, very narrow. Obviously, the Treasury Secretary told us that early June is when they expect us to meet that deadline. Congress only has really a handful of legislative days. So in this meeting next week, what exactly is the president going to want in terms of a commitment?
Well, I think what the president expects is, first of all, for Congress to do its job. This is actually Congress's job. The president cannot raise the debt limit. It is their job to do this, right? It is their job to keep us from defaulting. But what he also would like to do, and he has been clear about this, is that there is a place, and it's an appropriate time now, for the congressional leaders to begin the kinds of budget discussions that, frankly, you have when one house is controlled by the Republicans, the other house is controlled by Democrats. So this should move forward, and the president has been consistent since the beginning of the year that he felt that there would have to be these budget discussions, but that has nothing to do with keeping the United States economy from going into default. And, Caitlin, let's be clear, I'm sure people are a little confused. This is money that has already been spent. This is money that was spent in the last administration by Donald Trump and by Kevin McCarthy and by a whole Congress of people. So this is about paying bills that you've already promised to pay.
Kevin McCarthy argues that he's already done his job, that he passed a measure last week through his conference that it's very difficult to do for him. He has argued that he's done his job.
Well, Caitlin, I don't know, maybe they need to go back to School of Rock and look at how a bill becomes law, but he has begun his job because, the job is first the House passes something, then of course the Senate has to pass something, and Leader Schumer has already said what the House passed is never going to pass the Senate. Then the two sides have to come together. Okay, and the president obviously believes that these are important talks and that both sides need to listen to the others. Let's be clear, though. What the House Republican package proposes is cutting veterans' benefits. It proposes cutting 60,000 school teachers from across this country. It puts at risk up to 21 million Americans' health insurance, according to official estimates that we've looked at. It cuts the number of rail safety people, of food safety people in this government. And it has absolutely no revenue attached to it whatsoever. But what they also want to do in the House is to keep the Trump tax cuts that were passed in 2017 that are skewed wildly towards the wealthiest people in this country and the wealthiest corporations, keep those intact without paying for them. And that's a deficit buster by itself. So listen, there's a lot to talk about, but the idea that if you manage to pass a bill in one chamber, your work is done, is, I think, a misunderstanding of what the role of leadership is.
The president has done this kind of negotiating before. In 2011, he was a key broker during that fiscal cliff. On a scale from 1 to 10, how concerned is he about default?
I believe the president would say that at the end of the day, it is hard to believe that duly elected representatives of the American people are going to allow this country to go into default, which would have a catastrophic effect, not just on our economy, but on individual Americans. This morning, Mark Zandi, who is the chief economist for Moody's Analytics, testified in front of Congress. about the horrible effects that this would have, both in terms of the jobs lost, in terms of the businesses that would be closed, in terms of the interest rates that would be raised. Nobody wants to see that. So I think that over the next couple of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to see a lot of activity. But the president believes that Congress should be able to begin the budget and appropriations discussions that they need to have without sending the economy into default.
Does the president trust Kevin McCarthy as an honest broker?
You know, the president believes that these leaders are going to be able to sit down, get together, and start working towards an agreement that will allow us to move forward in terms of the budget. But he also believes that at the end of the day, leaders in Congress are going to do what is right for the American people, and that is make sure the country doesn't go into default.
But the president is in charge here. I know it's Congress's job.
The president is not in charge of Congress, Caitlin.
Right.
There's a thing called the Constitution, right?
Of course.
Okay.
But in terms of public opinion, this would happen under his watch. How concerned is he about that?
You know, Caitlin, at times like this, you do what's right for the American people, and the politics will take care of themselves. I would have to say that just given, as you said yourself at the beginning of this interview, the small group of extremists who have basically dictated the kinds of draconian cuts that the Republican package has in it, then I'm not sure the American people are going to say, oh, let those people call all the shots without any input from you, Democrats, any input from you, President Biden. At the end of the day, the American people are going to look at what the Republicans proposed, what the president has proposed, and they're going to make their own decisions.
I want to ask about immigration. Obviously, Title 42 is set to expire. There has been a surge of troops to the border, but you've gotten a lot of criticism. The administration has got a lot of criticism from Democrats. You have Senator Menendez saying that you've had 2 years to figure out this problem. You're not listening to him. New York City Mayor Adams has expressed concern about kind of the burdens that New York City is going to face. We also have Ruben Gallego from Arizona, also critical of the administration. You have had 2 years to get to this point. How has it gotten to this point?
Well, Caitlin, I think this is it's interesting to listen to members of Congress criticize this administration, given the fact that it has been 37 years since Congress last passed immigration laws in this country, and they all know that the basic problem here is those laws need to be updated. Now, we, as an administration, are doing what we need to do in order to manage the border problems. But at the end of the day, the answer here is that Congress needs to update our immigration laws to reflect the realities of 2023, not what America looked like in the 1990s. So we are taking steps to help manage. The active troops that are being sent to the border are not going to be performing police duties. What they are going to do is allow more Border Patrol agents to be able to be on duty. Secretary of State Tony Blinken has been working with countries in the region to set up regional processing centers so that people who are seeking asylum, who want a better life, who are escaping oppression, can apply for asylum, not taking the dangerous, expensive trip to the border, but doing it from their own countries. We're expanding the number of beds that we have. We are taking the steps we need to take. But the fundamental problem here, and one that the president recognized when on his first day in office he sent immigration reform legislation to Congress, is that they need to update our laws, and they have not done this.
There is a proposal that is circulating today, a bipartisan one, that would essentially extend Title 42 for another 2 years. Is that something the president would entertain?
You know, we haven't seen the proposal yet. Obviously, I understand that they're still circulating it. The biggest problem here is that we just need updated immigration laws, and not narrow, but broader immigration laws. And I think that the bipartisan nature of this perhaps would be helpful in bringing a broader coalition together in Congress to finally fix this. Listen, people want these laws updated. The farm industry would like to have more workers. The people who have families here, who have families there, would like to be able to reunite families. People understand immigration has long been a strength of this country. Congress needs to update the laws. Meanwhile, we will do what we need to do to manage the border.
And just quickly, because the president announced his re-election bid last week, he said over the weekend, as he likes to say, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. Is that how the administration sees this, as a race between himself and Donald Trump? Is that what it's about?
Well, Caitlin, under the Hatch Act, I actually can't talk about the 2024 race, so can't help you there. But what I would say is that people are going to look at what this president has accomplished. He came into office at a time when thousands of people a day were dying of COVID, when our economy was in a standstill, when we had lost over 10 million jobs in this country, when schools were closed. And due to his leadership, not only are we open, we're growing, over 12 million jobs have been created, manufacturing jobs across this country, the investments that are going to make us strong in the future. And that is a record that he loves to talk about everywhere.
One of his potential rivals, just really quickly, I know you have to go, Nikki Haley has expressed that she doesn't think that he will live through a second term. Don't voters have a right to be concerned about the president's age?
You know, the president's answered this question a million times, okay? And so I'll answer it for him one more time. Just watch him and then look at how much he has accomplished in 2 years, more than any 2-year period of any president for decades. But voters are going to, you know, I can't talk about the election, but people are going to make judgments based on what they see. So I would just say watch him and watch what he has gotten done, and then watch who he's fighting for. And as this was an issue in the past election, I think voters made their decisions, and that's what they do.
And you are going to play a key role in the campaign as well.
I'm going to be here at the White House, Caitlin.
Okay.
So,
how do you balance
serving the people?
Those two duties?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But balancing those two
you know, there
roles.
will be. Yeah. I don't even think I can talk about this under the Hatch Act, but I will just say that obviously I'm a White House employee and I have a government job, and I will continue to do my government job. So, thank you.